Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Kenny Clark. Kenny, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, my name's Kenny Clark, 27 years old. I live over in BC, Canada. I started kind of getting interested in real estate investing maybe 5 years ago. Didn't really know what to do. And then a couple of years ago, I actually put the time in to start actually, just putting some time into YouTube. I had a lot of spare time at work where I was just playing on my phone. I'm like, you know what? Like, I put so much time into these games and just watching like fail videos. Like, what if I put some of them into, watching real estate or something?
Yeah.
And it was actually an ad I watched that kind of taught me the BRRRR method.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can use equity for my house to actually buy something else. And that just like flipped the trigger in my head.
Yeah.
And yeah, ever since I'm super excited about everything real estate related. And
yeah. Let's hear your story. So like you're living in BC. How do you go into the US real estate? Were you buying Canadian real estate before us? Let's kind of hear how this all played out.
Yeah, so I've got two properties local. I bought one and house hacked it about 5 years ago. I just knew that I didn't want to pay bills, and I rented out the basement suite and a spare bedroom. Last year, I purchased a course that teaches me how to kind of market down in the States. Teaches me basically just to source deals, and what we do is I'll send out just a blank message to a bunch of ads, and when I get the replies back, I don't look at anything until I've negotiated it, and I ask for certain information, and then I categorize it within my email depending on what the numbers are. So if it's like a 15% cap, which is what I'm actually looking for down there, I categorize it as number one, and I pay attention to the deal. If it's like 10% or lower, then I have certain replies. And so yeah, the course I took, it's teaching us how to utilize asset-based lenders. And if you can actually get a property, so when it comes to multifamily, I'm sure maybe not everyone knows, they look at the value of the property, so like what the income is. But when you're looking at single family homes, you're looking at comparables. So if you have an apartment building with no one in it, it's not going to be worth very much. I'm just pulling up a calculator here. But as soon as you put tenants in it, the value goes way up. So like right now, the apartment buildings in my city, they're running at like a 4.5 cap, which I think is ridiculous.
I don't know who's buying these things, but
yeah. And like Vancouver, which is about 8 hours south of me, it's like they're playing equity. Like they've been in such a huge bubble for so long that like single family houses, like a 2-bedroom house that's derelict, is running for like millions of dollars, and it's being sold right away, and it's ridiculous down there. Yeah. So with an asset-based lender, I'm just here pulling up a calculator. Sorry, I should have done that.
No. While you're doing that, I'll mention but buying at 4 caps and stuff can make sense too, right? Now that I think about it, because a lot of times you can buy those properties and you can do some value add and some really small changes to the rent, some minimalizing some, moving down some expenses. And then based on whatever the cap rate for that city is, you can take a property and literally add a third of the value to it just with some small tweaks, right?
Yeah. And like basically with any property, if you buy it, like they say, you make the money in the buy. So as long as you buy it right, you can make money. And that's what I love about creative and creative financing too, is that if you find a deal, say even someone that's had a reverse mortgage on it, and there's no equity on it, you can still make money by doing, say, well, maybe not with a reverse mortgage, but subject to, right? You can get through some of that big interest, and you're actually paying the principal off when you take over. So like, let's say you have a property that nets $50,000 a year. If you can find that property for like under $333,000, there's lenders out there that will finance the entire purchase price. And now, if you don't know what you're doing, there obviously you're not gonna get much help. But so I've been doing all the marketing for that. And
So can you get this financing as a Canadian in the US?
yeah, you totally can.
Okay.
You just need to know what you're doing, right? Like, so if you find a property that's, you can say a 10 cap, but you negotiate it down and you can get that good price. Well, there's so much of an equity spread there versus the cash flow that any lender is like, well, even if it falls through and we have to hold it while it sells for a month, they're going to make even more money, which they don't want to do. They're not in the buying property business, but that's why we have to do our due diligence. We have to make sure that there's proper management, and if there is proper management, there has to be a backup, and there has to be a backup for that, so that we don't get screwed.
Right. Okay.
And so, like, I'm pretty new to it. I'm still learning, but throughout this, like, I've learned how to wholesale deals. But I have one under contract right now that I'm trying to assign, and that's in Arkansas. And like, I've never even been near the States, right? So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're saying with the buying with no money down, because typically, maybe I have to share some lenders back and forth, but the lenders that I've been using, they usually have like a seasoning period before they'll do the cash out of the property, right? So some of them are 3 months, some are 6 months, some are a year, and usually I would buy the property and try to do as much value add, do some limited expenses, do some sort of renovation, and then do the refi at the 6 month mark is my go-to. But it's very interesting to be able to do that at day one, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and the thing with these asset-based lenders is they aren't A lenders, so they're basically hard money lenders. They're trust funds, and they have a specific criteria that they can lend at, and if you meet that criteria, they'll give you the money all day long. And like, obviously, I've got 2 properties up here. For them, that's absolutely zero experience, right? But yeah, so we can pay up to double-digit interest rates even, and we're still cash flowing. And if we have someone say if we only got a 13% cap and we need that 2% covered by someone, there's still so much equity that we can pay everybody out. And if it takes us 12 months, 24 months to get that trailing 12 of rents all level, stabilized, then that's totally fine, because we're still making money. The people that are lending us the money, they're happy, and if we have any partnerships, they're getting paid out too. And if we were able to do some creative financing on the owner's side, then they're getting paid out as well. And then once we stabilize all the rents, maybe we do some value adds where we can, because like, if you raise the rents by even $50 and say 20 unit building, that can raise the value when you go to refinance quite a bit. And so after, we try to aim for 12 months. We go to, say, I guess it'd be Bank of America down there. We say, hey, we've got this property, it's making this much cash flow, and then they'll take it on because it's already been stabilized in our name for at least a year. And then we pay off the lender, we pay everybody off, and then we refinance as much as we can out of the deal at the same time, and we get ourselves to the payday, and we still cash flow. And then at that point, it's passive.
Yep, because you've done all the work right off the start. For those loans, do you know what the criteria is in order to get into those, the first ones?
Not totally. It can't be a D-class property. They say, basically your daughter has to be able to go pick up the rent at 1 a.m. It has to be turnkey, so it can't need a lot of work, unless I guess we're putting the work into it ourselves. But like, you can just go onto Google and search asset-based lenders USA, and there's a lot of
there's lots of them.
And they all have their different criteria. These guys, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I just put a deal through, and they're walking me through, and I missed a couple steps, and
It's all part of it.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you like, and like they got a good name, so they've got their lenders that'll do it for us too.
Off the start, you said something about ads and replying to ads. Are you like looking through like Craigslist or Facebook classifieds, or like is that the kind of ads you're looking at?
Yep, yep. So what I do is I go to Craigslist and I just have something that says, "Hey, I noticed you're selling your property." I ask a couple questions. I ask for who pays utilities. I ask what the gross rents are. You don't want to flood them with too many questions, because if you just come in, "Hey, what's this, and this," they're gonna be like, "Okay, well, this guy's weird," and just not answer that. So I ask those two main questions, which will help me roughly find out the net, and then I'll ask if there's any play in the numbers, and then that gives me an idea of where they're at. If they're like, "Oh no, there's no wiggle room," and I look and it's like a 6% cap, then I just have a reply that says, "Hey, not actually, I haven't replied to one of those in a while. I'll see what it says right here. If you don't have Evernote, I recommend it." It just says, "Hey, thanks for sending that over, but the returns don't get me excited. You can keep the conversation going, but I don't want to insult you with a low offer." And so if they reply back like, "Oh, well, maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room," then I can start trying to get to the impasse, which is,
Yeah. And
we
that's
always say,
you said a key thing there that a lot of people forget is giving feedback is big, right? Because you don't know what it's going to lead to, and it could be like, especially if you're talking, depending where you're buying these from. It sounds like these are completely off market, but sometimes when you're buying, like I've been starting to look at some larger multifamilies, the 30 unit ones, and a lot of times it's you're dealing with brokers, right? And just by
yeah,
replying to them, they know that you're actually looking at the deal and have evaluated it. You're not just a
yeah,
complete tire kicker.
yeah,
But yeah, so I would always say to give feedback whenever you have done the work of looking through this property and doing your analysis and stuff, because you never
yeah,
know. Some people might not even realize, that they're at a 4 cap or a 6 cap. They may not know what they're really doing. Like some of these are real mom pops that don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
yeah. And you know what? Even if the number is too high, if we can come to creative terms, the number can kind of become irrelevant, right? Like you
Yeah.
can give them 800,000 for a $600,000 property. If it's a no money down, no interest play or something, who knows, right?
Oh,
Maybe that's a bad idea to buy that one, but
no, but no, you're completely right. You can buy, if like they always say, you're either negotiating on the price or the terms. And when you're doing it on the terms, if they're willing to do some seller financing or subject to or some sort of carryback, you can make it so that it like cash flows really well and it works well for you, right?
yeah,
The only thing you got to make sure is if something doesn't go to plan and you need to sell it, that you're not stuck with this thing, right? But
yeah,
but yeah, no, like there's so many different layers of stuff you can negotiate on. You basically lease it from them. You do a lease option and do, with a price to buy it later. What's the risk to them? They don't have to pay the capital gains and get, a lot of stuff that you can make it working for both your favors, and you have a contract so that you can actually renovate and do what you want. It's
yeah. And like
I love when you said that.
I tried to negotiate only the price, and like really I don't even look at the ad. I don't look at the pictures. Excuse me, I don't look at anything until we've came to a price. So I'll negotiate price all the way down until I get impasse. So if that means that I come in at 70% of what they asked and they say yes, well I feel that I've just offered them too high because they just accepted it.
Yeah.
So I'll fall back for a month. I won't respond, and then I'll go back to them. "Hey, is this still for sale?" And maybe we come a bit lower, and then I try and find what their absolute lowest is, which in turn tells me why they're actually selling, which is huge. Once you find out the why, then you can get them what they want. And then once we come to an impasse, I find out what their number is. At that point, I can be like, okay, well, how about what if I did come up to your number now? Could we try doing it this way? And if they don't quite understand, because if you like you said, the mom and pops, if you start bringing up subject to and all these weird financing terms. They're like, I've had them, when I first started doing this, they just basically call you an idiot and walk away.
Yeah, they're looking for just a cash sale.
Yeah. And like, so I use Craigslist to do that. And then locally here, I have a couple ads that I've put on Craigslist and Kijiji, and it just says, hey, I'm an experienced multifamily investor looking for buy and hold properties, and a couple other things. And I've had a few people message me and in town here with, like there's a fourplex, and then there was like 2 fourplexes on one property.
Even still, because you can, once you have that in place, like I love to buy creative, like stuff that's already, like if a wholesaler's actually negotiated seller financing is so rare. They never do that. They always negotiate the price to try and get you this price thing. But whenever they have something with seller financing, it's way more appealing for me, especially as a Canadian. Like it's one less thing to figure out, right? And
yeah.
It's a very appealing thing, and it's one of those things that a wholesaler, especially, they typically just pass it over. They do the same thing over and over again, negotiate this price, but sometimes they didn't actually need to negotiate it as far. Sometimes the seller is open to just getting paid payments every month because they like cash flow, right?
Yeah, and like the ones who just want to retire, those are the perfect kind of deals for that, because they don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't even want to deal with a management company. Go, okay, well, I'll take over the complete asset and you get your mailbox money every month.
Yep.
And like what you were saying too is how some people don't always negotiate that well. I like to have different exit strategies, because we don't really do our due diligence till like usually like I try and do like at least 30 replies every few nights.
Yep.
And then I got to sort all that, and it's boring. It is. But I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No, but you say you're doing 30 replies a night, doing a lot of work. And
the exit strategies. So like when we get it under contract, we've found the bottom price that we want, that we think is fair, and then we have a due diligence period where we'll check the financials, we'll cross-reference their bank statements with tax records if we can. Sometimes we get pushback. And we go through everything. We try and get inspectors. A good way for virtual inspections is to try and get the city to see if it's like Section 8 or HUD compatible, because they'll get their guys go in there and be like, well, yeah, this has to be changed before we can certify it for us. And you kind of get a little idea of where you're at there. They're not going to be looking in the attic or at the walls, but
Yeah, no, but I've done those inspections. They are very thorough, and they're going to check everything. Yeah, both like of that the tenant would be involved with. Yeah.
So if you can negotiate these different these terms, if you're under due diligence and you find out that there's something that you don't like, well, there's an extra strategy. You can go to you can wholesale this deal because you've already got it at such a discount, or at creative terms, that you can actually wholesale it and it's worth to an end buyer. And you'd be like, well, we didn't complete our due diligence. This is where we got, this is why we left. And then as long as you're completely transparent with people, like you can find what you think is a worse property, and there's an investor that sees the diamond in the rough. So as long as you get it's an exit strategy, and it's also your exit strategy to buy.
Yeah, and if you can get more different exit strategies and be more creative on your purchasing, especially if you're wholesaling, that is. But like there's a lot of deals that they throw away because they're like, there's the buyer isn't flexible enough. But you're like, hey, maybe if they're not flexible, maybe we can work it out a different way, right? There's so many different ways to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because the throwaway rate is huge, right? There's so many things that don't hit the criteria, but you could.
Yeah, and like I've like subject to what a lot of people don't understand. Like, well, why would you want to take over someone's mortgage? Well, if you look at a typical mortgage, it's in you got the 3 trimesters. You got heavy interest, and then you got a little bit of both, and then you're paying off your principal. And if you can step in that middle trimester, anywhere else it's not heavy loaded with interest, well, you're paying down most principal, right?
Yes.
And then that's just one way to make money off the deal. And then you got your cash flow, you got your equity, you got everything, right? But if you can step into someone's mortgage and, you know, they want 300,000, but they owe 200,000, well, that just took 200,000 off of your purchase price. And now your rate of return just 60% or something. I'm bad with numbers. So
No, it's true. And a lot of people don't factor that in. They don't think about that. They think of mortgage just as an expense, but they forget that there's a principal pay down element to it. And by jumping in the middle of the amortization schedule, it's way higher principal loaded instead of interest loaded. And it does change things, because a lot of times typically it's a mistake I make myself. I'm not running numbers with the principal pay down in it. I don't factor that in. That's the gravy, right?
And like, that's why like Google is unreal. You just go and I just type amort calc, and it comes up with an amortization calculator, and it's the first one, and I type in a few numbers, and it does the other weird percentages I don't care for, but then it brings you up the whole chart, and it shows like what your whole pay down is. But then you can use that as kind of, you know, you've got your net, and then you add that to it, and you can find your net after debt service. So it kind of helps with underwriting too.
No, that's some great tips.
And like I love looking around. I don't like drive for dollars. I think it's a little bit different up in Canada than it is in the States, because we have like, I don't know, up here we got 70,000 people for like my city, and then the next biggest city over is like 8 hours away. So we don't have these big metropolitan areas that I could just drive around for hours.
Oh, so you're doing the wholesaling in Canada and the US then?
I'm also looking for deals here. We can't really wholesale here, but we can double close. I've never really thought about wholesaling here too much because of that, but I did recently started a property management group. I'm I don't know what my official term is, really, assistant to the property manager. Eventually, once I prove myself that I'm not lazy, I'll be going through schooling to get my license. And at that point, some of these deals that, you know, like I'm just getting through Craigslist. Oh, I got my kitty here. Through Craigslist and Kijiji local to me, I can bring to my boss's investors and be like, hey, you know, I've kind of already negotiated this is all this. And then, you know, I can kind of get like a consultation fee from that. It's not really wholesaling, but it's, bird dogging, I guess would be.
Bird dogging. No, and that's a valuable thing too.
So I've got these deals I'm trying to negotiate for, you know, no money down scenarios, which probably won't happen for a while, but maybe I can try and find an investor for it. And, you know, ideally I'd be like, hey, I got this, and I'll manage it if, you know, you can bring me in as a partner somehow. That would be ideal.
And, you know, if you get anything in my markets, I'm buying. I'm hungry.
I got
You got my list. Oh, awesome, Kenny. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
Probably Facebook. I think my tag is Kenny Clark RE, Facebook / Kenny Clark RE. I've got a group too, North American Real Estate Investors, that I try and post blogs pretty weekly, I guess. I get writer's block, but I try. I'm pretty open on Facebook, and I share my story with everyone. And I love talking about real estate. I get excited, especially when it comes to finding out creative ways and, you know, cool strategies, which really bore all my friends and my girlfriend, but
you're preaching there. I know who to talk real estate with and who not to.
I'll probably lost friends over it, but
anyway, thanks so much for coming on the show, Kenny. I do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and really it was an honor to do this.